Good afternoon to you. 306 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up today, Congressman Andy Biggs joins us at 3:30. Alan West is here at 4 o'clock. And then Philip Lenjicki joins us at 5 o'clock. We'll talk about his latest reporting on the Chi-Coms, what's happening with the Communist Party of China, and the massive differences between the way our kids are being raised and the way that the Chinese are raising their children in that communist-controlled country. Fascinating. Also, the Chinese Communist Party runs service centers operating in the United States. Philip's excellent reporting attracting some attention from members of the United States Senate. We'll get the latest from Philip coming up again at 5 o'clock. You can join us at 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. Remember, Hunter Biden threatened a Chinese businessman and said that he needed to get his money now or else he and his father, who was, of course, sitting right next to him, were going to make his life a living hell. Do you remember all of this? This was the message. I'm sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand. And now means tonight. And Z, if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. That was Hunter Biden's WhatsApp message to a Chinese businessman connected to a Chinese energy company called CEFC. And that brings us to today's breaking news. A man who was also paid by CEFC by the name of Dr. Gal Luft has now had a host of charges dropped upon his head by the United States Department of Justice, including that he failed to register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act while working to advance the interests of China in the United States. He was paid by CEFC China Energy. And yet Hunter Biden, who was also paid by that same energy firm to advance their interests as a U.S. citizen, has never been charged for violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act. In fact, whatever consideration U.S. Attorney in Delaware David Weiss ever gave to that issue, as we've known now for years, collapsed very early. David Weiss gave up on pursuing that, apparently. Now, there's some conflicting reports. There's claims that he was blockaded from being able to charge Hunter Biden with all sorts of violations of the law, including in places like Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. And he had to settle for some tax violations and lying on a gun background check form. And he did that in the form of a plea deal recently. You remember that? 2 misdemeanor charges for being late on his taxes to the tune of millions of dollars. And then a diversion agreement, essentially saying that don't you worry about this gun charge. If you keep your nose clean, it goes away. There is no felony consequence for you. A very sweet deal for Hunter Biden out of David Weiss. Now, Weiss, of course, has been telling Congress, hey, I had all sorts of latitude. I was given free rein to pursue Hunter Biden as much as I wanted. And you have the whistleblowers, the IRS whistleblowers, namely Gary Shapley, saying, look, Weiss can say whatever he wants. I know what I was told. I know what Weiss and his people told us. They were stopped from pursuing Hunter. They were stopped on the West Coast and on the East Coast. And when David Weiss requested special counsel status, he was stopped. He couldn't pursue Hunter. Something is going on here. The Department of Justice yesterday, Monday, just ahead of our conversation with Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, literally moments before, the news broke that they had charged a man called Gal Luft, a dual U.S.-Israeli citizen, and they said that he had failed to register under the FARA law, Foreign Agent Registration Act, while working to advance the interests of China and by brokering the illegal sale of Chinese weapons and Iranian oil to China. The DOJ alleges that left's think tank, the Institute for the Analysis for Global Security, accepted at least $700,000 from CEFC, China Energy, the same firm that was paying Hunter Biden 10% for the big guy. Do you recall that? Beginning in 2015. Philip Lanzicki writes today, and we'll talk to him at 5 o'clock about this and so much more. CEFC, of course, happens to be the same Chinese firm that allegedly sent millions to accounts linked to Hunter Biden and his associates, according to a Senate committee report and a Washington Post review of Biden documents. The DOJ indictment states this: for years, Gal Luft, the defendant, a dual U.S.-Israeli citizen, and others, known and unknown, engaged in multiple international criminal schemes, including a scheme to act within the United States to advance the interests of the People's Republic of China as agents of China-based principles without registering as foreign agents as required under U.S. law. How familiar does that sound? Well, it sounds exactly like what Hunter was doing, what the whole Biden family was doing. A CEFC subsidiary sent $100,000 to Owasco PC. Guess who controls that firm? Hunter Biden. On August 4th of 2017, just days after Hunter sent a text to CEFC associate Raymond Zhao, in which he cited his, quote, ability to forever hold a grudge if certain business was not conducted. That text message mentioned that Hunter's father was nearby at the time, referring to President Joe Biden, seated next to him, actually. Seated next to him. Pictures from Hunter Biden's laptop show that Joe was with Hunter on the day the text message was sent, adding to the validity of the claim that Joe was sitting next to Hunter as Hunter made the threat. So here's the other piece, and perhaps most importantly to this saga. Gal Luft has been saying for going on, what, a year now, that he's got the dirt on Hunter Biden. That given his proximity to CEFC, he was taking money from CEFC. Given his proximity to all of this, he knows very well the ways in which the money was flowing out of that organization, this Chinese Communist Party connected organization, into the pockets of the Biden family. And he has been on the run from the United States government. Last week, I shared audio with you of Gal Luft talking about all of this. He thinks that he's going to end up, if the United States gets a hold of him now, in prison for the rest of his life. Now, here's some basic things. I can't speak with 100% certainty to the credibility of Gal Luft. I don't know Gal Luft. I know that he works for a think tank that's been in Washington for decades. I know that he's connected to officials that are associated with Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton, that think tank was founded by people from both political parties, that he's as establishment as it gets. He's been on all of these major cable networks speaking as an expert. I don't know him, so I can't vouch for his credibility. But I can say that the credibility of the United States Department of Justice is severely damaged. Severely damaged. Americans like me do not trust the United States Department of Justice. Fox News just did a survey published at the end of June, where they asked the public about their confidence in various institutions, including the FBI and the United States Department of Justice. The FBI has abysmal confidence. Abysmal. 6 years ago, 80% of America had confidence in the FBI. Did you know that? 6 years ago. Well, a lot has transpired over those last 6 years. Confidence in the FBI is now down to 59%. And I'm a little surprised it's even that high. But 59% confidence in the FBI. Congress, you should know, is 34% as an institution. But the United States Department of Justice is even lower in terms of confidence than the FBI. Just 51% have confidence in the DOJ. 49% do not. That is an awful place to be for the Department of Justice when half the country doesn't trust you. And that distrust is super well earned, isn't it? All of the abuses and the manipulations and the censorship of the American public, lying to the FISA court in order to spy on American citizens, doggedly pursuing Donald Trump on the basis of lies that you knew were lies that were created by the Hillary Clinton campaign. Pursuing him now, prosecutors across the country, to include at the United States Department of Justice. The Biden administration arresting Joe Biden's signature political opponent, Donald Trump, raiding his home. People don't trust this DOJ. And so when they announced yesterday, quite conveniently for Hunter Biden's fortunes, that the man who's got the evidence against Hunter is now charged with a range of crimes, he's the bad guy here. Well, I'm sorry, but very few people believe you. Reflexively, you know, Ron Johnson, we kind of told him just ahead of him joining us on the air yesterday, as you know, as you do, you call the guest and we set him up just before he's about to go on air. We're on the break, and I talked to Corey about this. Corey handles all the guests, of course. He books them and he chats with them, and I said, hey, would you just make sure that Ron Johnson knows that I want to ask him about the breaking news here, that Gal Luft has been hit with all of these charges. Because it seems like a big deal, because you have members of Congress who've been trying to seek his testimony about what he knows about the Biden family and their finances. And so it'd be fair just for Ron Johnson just to mull over his answer prior to us actually asking it. And so when we get Ron Johnson on the air, I asked him yesterday, you know, can you speak to this breaking news? And he gave the same answer that I know instinctively in my heart, and I'm sure you do in yours. He said, you know, years ago, I would have just trusted that the Justice Department must have something. They must be onto something here. Unfortunately, I can't just trust that anymore. That can't be my instinct anymore. Not with the way this Justice Department has behaved. And he's totally right. He's totally right. And in Hunter Biden's case, this is a pretty well-established pattern, isn't it? So Hunter Biden takes money from Chinese Communist Party affiliated entities, and he's never charged with violating the Foreign Agent Registrations Act. A man who's got dirt on Hunter Biden also takes money from those companies, and he is charged with violations of the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Also on that gun charge, the one where Hunter Biden is not going to have any felony, he's going to get away with it for lying on a gun background check form about his drug use. Remember, it wasn't that long ago, just a couple weeks ago, we learned that a woman by the name of Deja Taylor, she's the mother of a 6-year-old who shot his first grade teacher in Virginia. You've seen this story. She pleaded guilty in June to federal criminal charges for using marijuana while owning a firearm and making false statements about her own drug use when she bought the gun. She pled guilty to these federal criminal charges. And so she had tougher consequences than Hunter Biden has. And in her case, the drug of choice was pot. It was not crack cocaine. It was pot. And yet Hunter Biden once again gets away with it. So what does this all add up to? Look, maybe the Justice Department has an amazing case against this guy, Gal Luft. Who knows? But the reality here is they have so diminished the value of their own currency. They have so abused the American public. They have so abused their own authority, their own power that we granted to them with the expectation that they would use it well in order to defend our interests and pursue actual justice. That now when they come out in the midst of all of this, you can't think it's anything but a cover-up. This is a political hit. Biden's Justice Department is taking out one of Hunter Biden's biggest witnesses in terms of meaning the person who's a witness against him. I mean, the only surprise at this point is that Tony Bobulinski hasn't been locked up. Although, where is Tony Bobulinski? Whatever happened to this guy? The guy who went on the record, he sat down for hours with the FBI, just like Gal Luft did, by the way. Gal Luft said in March of 2019, he gave every ounce of dirt that he had on the Biden family to the FBI. Where's Tony Bobulinski? Why isn't he in front of Congress? Where's the Republican urgency on that question, by the way? Drives me crazy. I keep asking what's going to happen here. So for the moment, we get this announcement, and I just have to say all of the basics here are that you're looking at corruption fundamentally. Whether it's in the decision to treat Hunter Biden with kid gloves at 53 years old because of his relationship to his father, who controls the United States Department of Justice, or it's the crushing of a witness against Hunter Biden, or it's both. We'll keep our eyes open. It's 3:21 now. Well, let's take a phone call. We've got Jason calling in from Kensington now. Jason, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello.
Hey, g'day, Vince. How you going, mate?
I'm all right, sir.
Hey, it just seems to me with this whole corruption thing with Hunter Biden, it doesn't seem like we can do a whole lot, and that the DOJ, Merrick Garland, all these people are in the corrupted side pretty much answer to no one. And I mean, unless it's Congress, but it doesn't seem like the Republicans have any sort of, doesn't seem to be able to want to sink the boot in when they need to. If they really wanted to, they could probably, get something done. But it just seems like they're kind of, the same old thing with Republicans. They're just too timid.
They've got to be fighters, don't they, Jason? They all of them have to grow spines. I mean, there are times, there's flashes where you say, man, finally, somebody's doing something. I'm getting some answers. But it feels like there's not enough of it. And it's maddening. And I know, Jason, you're not alone in this, but I hear from so many people that are like, what can we do? What can we do? I hear it all the time. And I can only tell you, we only have the power to compel our congressmen to do what they can within the constraints of their jobs. The reality is we need a Republican president of the United States, and and even with one, that's not a guarantee of anything. You had Donald Trump as president for 4 years, and you had a deeply corrupted bureaucracy that worked overtime to undermine him.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can threaten on Twitter. It's like, the days of Twitter are over. It's time to start, sinking the boot into these buggers, because, it's fine and dandy sitting there trying to, put your case on Twitter, but that's nothing. It's just words. So, that's what we need. We definitely need a regime change.
There's no question. There is no question. I've been thinking, Jason, thank you for the call. I've been thinking a lot about the other day, the quote, the famous Thomas Paine quote came to mind. These are the times that try men's souls. And in that passage called The Crisis, he says, tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Another way, there's no easy way out of this. It's a tough fight against tyranny. So keep your head down and keep working on it. Keep your shoulder heading in the right direction. All right, let's take a call in a moment. We've got a guest coming up. Congressman Andy Biggs is going to join us. We'll talk to him about the expected testimony of the FBI director tomorrow in Congress. Good afternoon to you. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, 4 o'clock, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Alan West is here. We'll talk about Joe Biden's new chairman of the Joint Chiefs nominee and some of the grilling that he received today in the United States Senate. And then Philip Lenjicki is here at 5 o'clock. He's an investigative reporter digging into the Chinese Communist Party. And boy, he's got some interesting information for us that we should definitely pay attention to. That's coming up at 5 o'clock. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The FBI Director Christopher Wray is set to appear tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning before the House Judiciary Committee. For more on what to expect out of that hearing, I want to turn now to our guest, Congressman Andy Biggs. He represents Arizona's 5th Congressional District, and he is a member of both that and the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, good to talk to you today, sir.
Thanks, Vince. Good to be with you.
What should we expect tomorrow as Christopher Wray arrives?
Well, I mean, you're going to see, let's just call it what it is, a lot of people who have lost trust in him, and so we're going to ask him questions related to a whole host of and series of things that I don't think he's going to be real happy to answer, and so you'll see him kind of dancing around a little bit and see people try to get him to answer. And it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a standstill, but I think that he's going to try to push back and not respond to questions on everything from the disparate treatment over presidential records from Mar-a-Lago to Joe Biden's 1,800 boxes spread around the country somewhere. You're going to see the Durham report brought up, FISA, a whole host of things.
Also, I obviously I expect this will come up, and I hope to hear a lot of conversation about whatever investigations have either been conducted or blockaded or whatever into Hunter Biden and the Biden family business deals. I mean, why was it so difficult for the FBI director just to provide a single form to the United States Congress and on the bribery allegations against the Bidens? I mean, that was like pulling teeth to get that out of him.
Yes, it was, and then there's supposed to be additional documents that have come, and I haven't seen those additional documents. But Vince, I think you got to the heart of why there's this trust gap between members of Congress and Christopher Wray, because the document that you described, which is called an FD 1023, this particular one was unclassified. There was no classified information there. But when they finally gave it to us, they didn't give it to us. We had to go down to a secret room, read it there, leave it there. I took notes on it. They confiscated my notes. They redacted important information from it. And Vince, I can't emphasize this enough. This is a non-classified document. That document that circulated widely, apparently, within the Bureau itself. So this is part and parcel of what you're going to see tomorrow. People are going to be, I think, a little bit livid. I mean, if you can be a little bit livid, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe livid says you can't be a little bit livid. Maybe you just are livid. But the point is, people are going to be emphatic about the positions that they have questions about.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a story on Hunter Biden, his business dealings, and the ways in which Joe Biden's been enriched by all of this that keeps on coming up as it relates to the FBI. It seems like the FBI keeps doing interviews of some length with people who have allegations against the Bidens, and then they never follow up with them. So for instance, two people jump to mind at least immediately. One is Tony Bobulinski in the closing weeks of the 2020 election. He says he sits down with the FBI, has extensive conversations with them. They say, we're going to get back in touch with you. And they never do, by his own later admission. Gal Luft now, who is being charged by the United States Department of Justice with a series of felonies announced yesterday. Also, another person who says he's got all this information about the Bidens. He sat down with FBI officials back in March of 2019, and then they never meaningfully followed up with him. What is this? And can Christopher Wray answer some questions related to that?
Well, that's exactly right. So when you look at the Bobulinski and you basically combine that with the notion that they had the Hunter Biden laptop, they sat on it, didn't look at it, or actually we think they did look at it, but they did nothing about it. It impacted very greatly the 2020 election. And then in this instance, the other one, Gail Luft, this whistleblower is out there. And there's an odd timing to this, all of this magic, where he comes forward and gives us all this incredible information, and then he is charged mysteriously at this time. So the timing looks suspect in and of itself. This is a whole series of things that have basically eroded any kind of trust that Americans have in the police apparatus at the federal level. And so yeah, Christopher Wray should answer those questions. But you asked earlier about me to foreshadow this. I'm foreshadowing this by telling you I think he's going to tell you, well, that's an ongoing investigation. I can't answer it. That's not within our division. That's not within my purview. Blah blah blah. Whatever. But he's going to dance around.
Well, of course, as he does. It seems like a lot of the people here who deserve all of this scrutiny are very slippery people. That includes people like Anthony Fauci, Christopher Wray, Merrick Garland. But the evidence keeps stacking up against the FBI, and I don't think the American people have any confidence whatsoever, although Christopher Wray keeps on claiming, well, we fixed it. The FBI is all fixed. All the problems that existed in the past, they're not there anymore. And then they'll get on their high horse, Christopher Wray will, and start telling you shouldn't, insult the dignity of the hardworking public servants of the FBI.
Right, but we're not insulting the hardworking servants at the FBI. We're insulting him and his leadership and failures, and that's the problem. And so man, as I was preparing for this, and I've got mine. I don't want to give them to you because I know he listens to you every day, Vince, and I don't want him to be able to prepare. So
if he doesn't, somebody who knows him is definitely listening. You're right.
That is exactly right. So I've been preparing my questions. I got a whole series of questions, and actually, as we were looking at these questions, we realized since I only get 5 minutes, it's impossible for me to ask him all these things within 5 minutes because the one thing that they love to do when you're asking them questions is they want to filibuster, right?
Well, so, I got to be honest though, Congressman. Everybody involved likes filibustering for some reason. It drives me so crazy. It's like if it's not just the witnesses, it's the lawmakers too, and it happens regardless of political party. But that is one of the most maddening things because I'm sitting there hoping new information comes out, and then I'm just hearing a bunch of old information told with rhetorical flourishes.
Well, that's right, and so I mean, but there's a lot of questions to ask him. A lot of investigations that we don't know why they were stopped or why they were suppressed, why he didn't give us information on them, and so we will be asking those questions.
Yes,
and the real he's going to filibuster at that point. And
an example of an area where he can't just dodge on the quote ongoing investigation claim is Hunter Biden. Because specifically the stuff that David Weiss has addressed, like what did that look like? What led? Because now we have a plea agreement, right? Hunter Biden's pleading guilty to those tax violations. He's got a diversion agreement on the issue of lying on the gun background check form. So walk us through that, FBI Director Wray. What considerations were given to this investigation? You can't claim it's under investigation anymore. That thing seems to be settled.
I agree with you. I think they've already told us as we've tried to expand on this post announcement of this miraculous plea agreement that there's an ongoing investigation, and we're like, what is it, and of whom? Is it of Hunter Biden? Are you telling us that there's additional investigations going on Hunter Biden? And if so, what did his attorney fail to get in that plea agreement? What is the scope of the plea agreement? Will you provide us the plea agreement? We've asked for that. Why is the plea agreement sealed? A whole host of questions like that have gone unanswered.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, Christopher Wray can only handle the FBI component to this, but there are so many other questions about the United States Department of Justice that need to be answered too. Including, what was going on in David Weiss's office. This IRS whistleblower certainly seems to have some really important allegations that need to be resolved about this assistant U.S. attorney, Leslie Wolf, who kept blockading IRS investigators from looking into Hunter Biden, looking into Joe Biden, saying, don't look into the big guy, don't look into dad. There's just a mountain of evidence in front of you that we're dealing with a corrupt government, Congressman.
Agreed, and I wish tomorrow the format was going to be different. I wish the format would allow actual, leveraging and opening up and getting him to open up and answer these questions. I'm just unfortunately afraid that it will be occasionally, like when we did the Mueller, that was better than we ever could have hoped for, right? But maybe this will turn out to be better. But these things tend to be so anticlimactic. You and I talking about it, we know what needs to be asked. We know what the answers should be or should look like anyway.
Yes.
And I'm just afraid that it's going to be somewhat anticlimactic. But the American people need to see this in action because this should rile them up and help them understand even better that this police apparatus, the federal police apparatus, is corrupt and needs to be reformed and revised or dismantled altogether.
Okay, so we've talked at some length about Hunter Biden and the investigation into the Biden family. I do hope we get some answers on that tomorrow. But then there's also the FBI's involvement in censoring American citizens, the role that the FBI played in the 2020 election, the influence it wielded over social media companies, the coercion to censor broad categories of conversation. And we just got a report yesterday from CNN, although I have to say CNN really mangled this scoop into a very casual defense of the FBI. But fundamentally, what CNN reported was that the FBI has been teaming up with a Ukrainian intel agency to censor American citizens. CNN says that the FBI participated in what they refer to as a flawed effort to stop Russian disinformation at the behest of a Ukrainian intelligence agency that instead ensnared authentic American accounts. What kind of digging should we expect tomorrow with Christopher Wray on the FBI's censorship of American citizens?
I think people are going to ask them what their predicate was to do such a thing, what their legal authority was to do such a thing, what disciplinary action should be put in place, what kind of investigation internally are you doing, and should we be getting some kind of special counsel to be investigating you, or should the Inspector General be investigating you? Because what you described and what's been reported, in my mind, that is the heart of what fascism is and what authoritarianism is, because it's a combination and a use of you've taken our own government, combining with a foreign government to basically provide misinformation or disinformation with the assistance of private social media companies. That combination in and of itself is very dangerous. That's why I fully expect him to try to qualify that in some way, but we have got to get to the bottom of who, what, when, where, and why on that.
Yes. In fact, it was just a week ago, a federal judge issued a very sweeping injunction of the Biden administration, comparing the Biden administration's censorship of the American public to an Orwellian ministry of truth. And He said that this is arguably the most massive attack against free speech in United States history. Those are really amazing and just scary words that a judge is uttering here. And this sounds a lot like what he's describing.
Yeah, it's chilling, and it gets to this point of how much longer do we let these institutions like the FBI and the DOJ exist in their current form? Because I don't think you can allow them to exist in their current form, because they have proven to be, as one whistleblower told us, corrupt to the core. And this notion that you can provide censorship or exercise censorship, and at the same time use your pulpit to disseminate misinformation and disinformation, and what makes it particularly pernicious, that's really, really bad. But when you use it for political purposes,
yes,
which is exactly what was going on here in every instance, both in the case you mentioned last week and also with the Ukraine government and intelligence agency trying to intervene in our free flow of information, that was being done for political purposes. And that is what an authoritarian regime does. And I've said it before, we actually have an oligarchical form of government at the top now, and they're exercising authoritarian style tactics against the American people. And that's why we've got to get to the bottom of this as much as we can. I mean, the detritus that they're going to throw at us tomorrow is going to be absolutely mind-boggling.
Yes.
But we got to push forward through it.
Well, look, Congressman, I appreciate your honesty here, that you're not pretending that this is going to be a big revelatory event tomorrow, given the nature of all the people who are involved. And by the way, I should mention, Adam Schiff is on the committee. Jerry Nadler is the ranking member. There's going to be a lot of speed bumps thrown in the way to getting good information. But please try. And Congressman, thank you so much for being on with us today. All right, let's take a phone call. I've got Howard calling in from Manassas on line 2. Howard, good afternoon. You are on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon, Vince. How are you?
I'm doing well. Go for it.
So you were just speaking to Andy Briggs, who I believe was a former police officer, and they're going to ask all these questions tomorrow, and they're not going to get one answer.
Yeah, that's what Andy Biggs is scared of.
They won't even be able to. They won't even tell you. If you ask them what color the sky is, they won't even tell you that. We're sick and tired of this dog and pony show, and it's a bunch of BS. And they're not going to get one single answer, and it's just pathetic. Who's the bigger clowns, them or the people they're asking the questions to?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. No,
you know,
it's a
we're
great
sick of
question, and it's
we're sick of this.
this is why I said I was actually kind of shocked by the congressman's honesty here. He was saying, "Look, this is probably going to end up being nothing. This is going to be super disappointing because Chris Wray is going to waste all this time, filibuster, and then slide right out, the greasy guy." You know, I really hope Republicans. I hope that Andy Biggs. He did sound like he was holding some of his cards close to his vest. I hope they have a unified strategy. It's not a bunch of independent 5-minute question and answer segments. You need to go in as a team and be ready to slam this guy because Democrats are going to throw everything in your way they can possibly move. It's time for hardball. The American people deserve that. They need it big time. Coming up, we're going to be joined by Alan West. Moments from now, we'll talk about the future of the United States military under Joe Biden's leadership, at least for the moment. Also, Philip Lenjicki is going to be with us coming up. It's all ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show.